All right, I've got 10 o'clock on the dot. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to the October Real Talk About Real Estate. My name is Michelle, and I'm the marketing lead for the ABR designation. Today, I'm joined by Shannon Buss, broker associate and professional development manager at Randall REALTORs. This month's Real Talk is all about locating listings for your buyer clients. As a reminder, we are live, so if you have any questions or just want to say hi, leave us a like or a comment on the video. Shannon, we're hearing about a slowdown in certain markets. What does that mean for inventory?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of talk about this in the field. And of course, this is a very local topic. So, we're starting to see what feels like more inventory in the field. But actually, statistically, I'm speaking for Rhode Island right now, but I'm hearing this across the country. Um, it's really what we're seeing on paper is kind of a slowdown with the buyer activity, right? We have less than a month's worth of inventory here, which I know is a pretty common statistic across the US. And, for the past 18 months at least, we've been dealing with an extreme shortage of inventory. What I'm hearing from some of the sessions that I'm popping into is, kind of get ready to go from this super chaotic seller's market and get ready for a shift into just kind of a regular seller's market. We're not seeing as many multiple offers in the field. They're still out there for sure, and it's definitely property specific. We're starting very beginning of seeing this some actual days on market, like a week. And
Hey, we'll take it, right?
yeah, and a few price reductions. I think one of the things that we're going to have to learn to do in this next shift is communicate with the sellers on the the listing prices. And, data doesn't lie. That's going to be our best friend. But sellers have been pretty spoiled over the past, 18 months plus. And they're used to getting, terms that we've never seen before. They're used to getting more than their asking price.
Right.
And, bringing them down to reality and dealing with realistic situations is something that, as buyers agents, we will have to participate in that. I think it'll help us in submitting offers to submit our comps with the offer and an explanation to help that listing agent get us to, an agreement. So,
Yeah.
but
Sellers have been spoiled.
yeah, absolutely. And we definitely, don't get me wrong, it's not a slow market. It's still fierce out there. And some properties absolutely, are getting piles of offers still. So, know in advance, having that conversation with the listing agent before you submit is going to be really important right now. But even another reason why it's important to be still looking for your own inventory as a buyer's agent, right? We may
Yeah. And
have
that actually, oh,
sellers.
sorry.
Yeah.
I got really into this month's Real Talk because Shannon came up with a really creative title about hunting. So I had to pull out some props. So got my binoculars. Um, Shannon, what's the most creative place to find a listing?
I'll tell you, recently, one of the places I probably would not have thought to look here, it was introduced to me through another agent in my office, is homeowner associations. We actually just sold a property. In fact, it's closing on Monday. And we, some, someone was at the homeowners association and the owner announced that they were thinking about selling but had no interest in actually listing it in MLS. They wanted to do a private sale, so for sale by owner. We connected and we're under agreement. So homeowners associations, that's on my list now. You just never know. Another really good source for us has been property management companies. because they have, a lot of rental inventory for, I live in a second home market, a large second home market. And so a lot of these properties have professional management, and they're first to know if somebody's thinking about not renewing the lease for next year and considering a sale. So when we're talking about prospecting, like this is business planning season right now. Hopefully you're not waiting till January 1st to be thinking about that.
Right.
And part of that is always prospecting, I hope, for all of us. And we talk about, who are your closest, your inner circle, your closest contacts that are most likely to send you business. And when I'm teaching prospecting at home to our agents, I talk to them about look at your contact base and think about also where do you spend your money and who do you do business with, and think about who is first to know when someone needs to sell a house. And these past 18 months have really taught us to pay attention to life changes, right? There's been a lot of things just happening in the world, a lot of life changes. A lot of people are switching professions, they're relocating because they don't have to be at the office every day, all kinds of things going on. And so who in your life is first to know? Where another great source for us this year has been estate attorneys. And what we're finding is, they're first to know because in that life change, that's the first person the family calls. And they often know about inventory either coming up, or they know of a situation. There's been a few for us that we've been introduced to the families because the families just do not want that traffic in their house yet. With the pandemic, they don't want, a line down the street with public open houses, etc. So we do, because of the pandemic, still have these sensitivities in the field.
Right.
And we do, I believe, there's a percentage of potential sellers out there that are just not comfortable publicly listing their home, but may consider it given the right circumstances, right? So estate attorneys have been great, and we've now, started communicating with them on a regular basis to say, this is what we're looking for. If you hear of anything, please let us know. Abandoned properties, we call them abandoned, but we have a lot of snowbirds here. So a lot of New Englanders go south for the winter. This is the time right now, if you live in a community like that, to be reaching out to those owners, because they'd be looking to sell before the spring summer season, because a buyer is going to want to be in the home to enjoy it through spring and summer, right? So it's strategic thinking, it's strategic planning of who's my target audience, who is first to know, how do I get in front of them, right? And when is the best time?
Right. I mean, timing is everything.
Yeah. HR companies, or HR departments in your area, if you have, large employers, sometimes can be a resource for you. One of probably the greatest thing for listing sources for us this year, I have a business partner. So when I say us, there's 4 hands in this pot.
Yeah, I'm not part of it.
Yeah, 4 hands are better than 2 in my life. It's our inner circle. So for instance, I have 2 buyer clients that I was working with this year, and nod to Reback, because Reback was, ABR, nod to Reback for sure, but ABR was my first designation that I ever received. It was very early on in my career. And so it played a big part in how I represent buyers, because that information and that training got in front of me before I was able to really learn any bad habits. So I've always used exclusive buyer contracts. I've always done a buyer consultation before I take a client out. I think right now in this market, if you're not doing that, you are crazy. right? Really, because, you know, you're causing headaches for yourself, honestly, because if you take an uneducated buyer out into the field, you're building anxiety if you don't tell them what's going to happen before it happens. People have to make very quick decisions. You know, it's uncomfortable for the most educated of buyers. An uneducated buyer, it's almost unfair, right?
Right.
Um, and so getting back to ABR, you know, part of this buyer consultation that we do, it's about an hour, and we prefer in person, but Zoom, you know, is a great alternative. Face to face is critical. We cover, like, as a team, like we're a team, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer and real estate partners on this end, we're a team. How do we find inventory for you, right? When there was absolutely none, there was less than none to be had. My buyers were posting in community groups on Facebook saying, hey, we're looking for a home. Is anyone considering selling? They were bringing me leads for listings. Wow. They would even bring them to me and say, hey, Shannon, this house isn't going to be for us. But they responded, you should call them, and they're going to think about listing it. You should call them. We told them to hire you. What is better than that? You know, your clients
right to you.
Yes. Yeah. And your clients are actually working for you and understand how your business works. And when they're, you know, when you're not in the room, they're able to have conversations about what you need and how they can help you grow your business. So some of those Facebook groups have been really good for us. And, you know, that's, of course, super local. So you have to spend some time kind of researching what's out there in your community. The Nextdoor app has also been really great for us to be able to post, hey, we have a buyer that is looking specifically for this. I personally take issue with, you know, the blanket letters saying we have a buyer looking to buy, and they really don't. Like, we use it when we need it. And people realize that and they respond if they have something, right? There's nothing worse than, you know, you get the call and then you have no buyer to produce. You know, that's just authenticity for me. But those groups can be really great if you use them the right way. And what we find is that consumers, potential sellers, are much more inclined to respond to a buyer than they are to us. So if your buyers are on the team, so to speak, and willing to do that piece, it can be great. It's been awesome for us.
Do you kind of coach if you are telling your buyer clients that it's okay to go out there and reach out, you know, put it out there that they are looking for a home, do you coach them on exactly what to say when they put those posts out there?
Yes. We draft it up together.
Okay, good.
Yep.
That makes me nervous because I was like, oh, like, you know, you don't want to get into the, you know, the buyers asking questions or posting things that could, you know, be a violation.
The response, here's what comes next. Here's how we handle it. This is why, right? The other piece I want to mention, going back to my ABR designation and using exclusive buyer contracts, one of the number one, like, gut-wrenching things that, you know, we've seen in the field has been, you know, you've put all this time and energy into working with a home buyer, and you've shown them, or tried to show them, you know, tons of properties, and you've missed out on a bunch of offers, but you've done all that work. If you don't have a contract in place, what we're seeing, and I saw it as a listing agent, is buyers got so burnt out, you know, that they would come to the listing agent and say, if you take my offer, we'll come through you, thinking that that's an incentive. I think you know where I'm going with this. And I'll tell you, I was pleasantly surprised at the professionalism, you know, in the field. I served as state president last year, and so a lot of these stories kind of came my way, where a lot of listing agents were referring them and saying, no, you need to go back to your realtor. and we'll give you the opportunity to see it, and we'll give you the opportunity to submit, but you need to go back to the person that represents you. And that made my little realtor heart sing, you know. But there, of course, if you don't have that agreement in place, you open yourself up to the possibility of them going somewhere else, right? And so I know that's a little bit off topic, but not really, because it's all part of this lack of inventory issue. You know, divorce attorneys are another great source. Builders, another great source for us. And we have some partnerships in the field now because we've done some new construction this year. I think we did 4 or 5 new home builds. And so sometimes the builders are out there searching for properties that they can work with in the future. Some don't work for them, but maybe they work for you. And so if you have that relationship, you have people sort of out there prospecting for you, right? For sale by owners, of course, have been, you know, a source of business for us. We've done a few this year. In fact, that one Monday is closing. What I'm finding is, and it's tough because if you don't represent them, you can't advise them, right? You don't have that relationship in place. But they are very uneducated on what's truly happening in the field as far as appraisals, as far as inspections. You know, we've seen some pretty wild terms this year. So, you know, it can be a source. We've had luck with it. And again, we've got people, we have our inner circle trained because we can't be everywhere. If they drive by a sign, they write it down and they send it to us and say, here's a for sale by owner, good luck. You know, here's the phone number and the address. We've almost turned it into a little contest, which has been kind of fun for us.
That is fun.
Yeah.
It's like I Spy.
Yeah. I'll tell you my funniest one of all time is a relationship with the dumpster company.
Oh, wow.
When people order dumpsters, they're getting ready to think about selling. And so, you know, look for those dumpsters in the yards. And yard sales have been good for us, which is super crazy. The online yard sales especially has gotten us into a lot of conversations.
Well, I'm sure estate sales too, if you're talking to the state attorneys.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that whole sphere that, you know, folks that work with estates, it's really good to have that kind of network because you'd be surprised what conversations they're involved in. Okay. But think about that. They're almost like micro spheres instead of your sphere of influence of your personal contacts. These are really business spheres, right? I think I would argue that right now, before the market shifts completely, you think about niche markets and what you want to specialize in, so that that becomes a source of inventory for you. As we know, listings are king, right? But there's no better way to represent your buyers right now than to be able to produce inventory for them. That's for sure. Past tenants and past landlords, landlords especially, so anyone that has been involved in the rental market. For us, we don't do a lot of rentals personally, and so we lean on the property management companies. But we went through stacks of old client files a few months back, looking at who has rental properties that might be considering, you know, a change. So those have been really successful for us. Do we have any questions in the chat or any engagement?
Not so far, but I know there's a few people watching, so hopefully they're just being shy. But yeah, feel free to leave us a comment or a question. We'll be sure to try and answer that. I actually have a question for you, Shannon. You know, we've talked about how important it is to find listings for your clients, but what are some other things that buyers agents can do to deliver value for their clients?
Oh my gosh. The number one complaint, like, and I'm talking legal hotlines, like coming into the state associations this year, has been, I'll use one. I was just having this discussion the other day without saying what state it is. clients were calling, and their biggest complaint in the last year was they were being asked to sign paperwork and they didn't know what it meant. No one had explained, and so we have online signatures, which is it's a lifesaver, really. And It's so efficient. This is the way that we're going to do business now, but we have to remember to slow down the process, and that the people on the other side of the table don't do this every day. And it's important for us to over communicate, rather than under communicate. There are these gray areas in buyer representation that give us as agents an incredible opportunity to shine. And they're missed a lot of the time because we don't slow down the process. We don't do that consultation. We fly out the door and, want to just open the property for them. It's not the best way, right? I'll give you one example. I hear this a lot. The buyer is a week from closing and it's a first-time home buyer, and oh my gosh, no one told me I had to pay for 1 year's worth of homeowners insurance up front. Well, if it's a first-time home buyer, that could be a chunk of money that doesn't exist, And so these little gray areas of like, whose job is it? Look for those, because that's your opportunity to really shine as a buyer's agent. And I think in December, I'm doing another session that really talks about what are those gray areas and how can you really be do an exceptional presentation for your folks. But really what you're doing is you're eliminating all of that anxiety from the transaction. So expireds, we've been going back through, oh my gosh, not the expired from this morning, right? Because everyone in your marketplace is targeting those folks. Although I would argue, study your competitors, do what they're not doing. Everybody sends a letter. Go knock on their door. Introduce yourself, right? The NAR profile of home buyers and sellers, like every single year, says that over 90% of consumers hire the first realtor that they have face-to-face contact with. Well, that's not a statistic we should ignore. We should be building our business around that one thing. Go knock on their door, introduce yourself. I go back 3 months, 6 months, 2 years ago, even in my market, there are some owners who didn't have enough equity in their home to be able to sell. Well, we had almost 14% property increase over the last 12 months. This time last year, people had 14% less equity. That's an incredible conversation to be able to have with people. So if their home expired 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and they've been orphaned, right? Their property expired, they got 150 letters in the mail that week, and then no one contacted them ever again. They may be a source of listings for you. And they may have, their situation likely looks a lot different today. There's a lot more incentive for them to take advantage of this market. So expireds would be a great source. Mortgage folks, believe it or not, people that have considered moving up in a property or relocating, sometimes the first to know is a mortgage person. We have relationships with local credit unions and banks for that reason. Also because we love to use local folks, and they do great work. But often, buyers will go through the pre-approval process before calling a realtor. And so sometimes those mortgage loan officers will have leads as to, what may be up and coming in terms of listings. So.
Yeah. We actually do have a question that came in from Honorata. I hope I pronounced that correctly. They wanted to know, what would be the value proposition for an estate attorney?
What is my value proposition?
Yeah, sure.
Well, if they don't want to publicly list the property, I can bring them a buyer without doing that very easily. you know, aside from if there's a specific listing on the table, my proposition to it, that was actually my previous life. Before I was a realtor, I was a paralegal for an estate attorney.
Okay.
And so that's one of my niche markets. The
Makes
value
sense.
proposition is for these families. I'm a one-stop shop. So I have a crew of people that will come in and empty the contents of the home. I have, you know, a consigner who will come in and sell specific pieces and give, you know, the money generated from that to the family without them having, sometimes it's an emotional process, which is very
Totally.
difficult for the family. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's very overwhelming because of time. And so if you can take that off the plate, you make the attorney look very good. That you say,
Right.
I'm going to set you up with this person and she has everything that you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have repair companies. We have everything that you can think of. It's a concierge service for everything relating to estate sales. And
That's awesome.
I have a deep understanding of the process. So
Right.
if it's a property that has to be probated, I know about the deadlines. I know about the filing process. I know what the attorney's job is and how I can make the attorney's job easiest. That's my selling
Amazing.
proposition. Yeah.
That's awesome. Anuradha, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Shannon, I've got one last question for you. What are 3 things that buyer's agents can work on right now to finish the year strong and fill that pipeline for next year?
Whew. Yes. Give me an easy one. So the best thing that you can do for yourself right now is come up with a touch plan for your 2020. I took a session a few months ago, and I've been thinking about this one thing every single day. It happened to be in August, and they said, don't wait until January 1st. Treat September 1st like it's January 1st. And I thought, yes. You know, so often at this time of the year, we sort of take our foot off the gas, thinking like, oh, I'm so close to my goal that I put on my business plan, or, you know, I've had a really good year, so now I can slow down. Just treat right now. November 1st is your January 1st, and come up with a touch plan to be in consistent contact with your circle, your sphere of influence. Such a huge piece of business comes from our sphere. That should be like your number one focus if you have one, if you have the luxury of having a sphere of influence.
Right.
If not, create one. Come up with a plan to build one, right? And train that inner circle would be number 2, which is a totally different strategy, right? So teaching them, you know, I'll give you one example. I have a couple who I'm friends with. I went to college with him and I used to work with her. They got married and all my worlds collided in the most beautiful way. And every
Yeah.
time I go to, you know, a gathering at their house, I sell a house every single time, because they
awesome.
know everyone and everyone loves them and everyone trusts them. And so now when we go, you know, I've sold property to a lot of the people that are there, but inevitably there's a new face, and inevitably real estate comes up because everyone loves to talk about real estate, right? And so I'm never showing up saying, hey, does anyone need to buy or sell? Because that's just gross, right? But it always comes up. And when it does, usually someone will say, oh, you need to talk to Shannon. But if I'm not there, what are they saying when I'm not in the room? And we need to create those brag bites for them. And the biggest miss, because this did happen to me once, and then I learned from it to say, okay, how do I do things differently so this doesn't happen again? They had a party. Someone there, you know, started talking about buying a property, and they said, you know, and this is Newport, Rhode Island. We are a resort town, so there was wine. And someone said, oh, you should call Shannon. Oh, great, great. You know, and everyone enjoys their evening. My business card is now a coaster. And the next day, these poor people don't know how to reach out to me. And most consumers are not going to make the effort to track you down. So when I say train, now my top 50 or my top 20, whatever, we're all a little different. We have these conversations of like, if you want to help me grow my business, the best thing you can do for me is when that happens, you say, would it be okay if I have Shannon call you? So now I have permission, and it's a warm introduction, and that lead doesn't have time to go anywhere else. So work on, having some of those conversations. Also work on reciprocity. How, make sure that if you're asking for help, you're also doing your homework, so you know how to help the other people in your sphere. How do you help them grow their business as well? I think the pandemic taught us a lot about shopping local and the importance of supporting local businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So that's of course appreciated. And really polish your consultation, because if we create a winning experience for our buyer clients, they become our raving fans. And now all of a sudden, we're getting referrals from that just because we did right by them. And we looked for those gray areas. We did a little bit more than was expected, and we left them better than we found them. Right. And that's that's where our business really snowballs.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know you what was that?
I think those were 3 things.
I think you honestly gave like more than 3, which is amazing. So, and Shannon mentioned, how important that consultation is. And fortunately for you, Rebec does offer tons of materials for your buyer consultation. She mentioned the buyer agreement
itself is mostly made up of the ABR one sheets.
Love it. And you said also when we talked yesterday, you said,
yeah, you don't have to recreate the wheel. If somebody already has, produced something that is, beautiful and impactful and educational, use it. You don't have to recreate the wheel.
Right. Yeah, we did all the work for you.
Exactly. The benefit.
And then
that's benefit of having the designation.
Yeah, and then also the Homebuyers Toolkit, which I was telling Shannon, we actually just updated earlier this year. So it's got some new imagery. You can get some new cover options, things like that. It's really neat. So be sure to check out the Rebec print shop.
Michelle, I would like to see some more of our ABR members and Rebec members write on the blog for the consumers. I forget the name of it, but it's great.
Homebuying.realtor.
And it's a huge opportunity to get your name out there, because there are a lot of consumers that go to that blog.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, Shannon posted a few years ago, and I told her she's got to come back and do another one. So we'll get that up as soon as she sends us one. So last chance for any questions. Honorata, thanks for chiming in. I hope that Shannon answered your question. She is a member of the Facebook group, so if you want to tag her, she'll be able to answer any additional questions after we're done here. And I guess that pretty much wraps up for today. So thank you so much, Shannon, and to everyone for joining us. I hope you learned a lot about inventory in today's market. Please join us next month on November 2nd to hear about foreclosure trends with Cynthia DeLuca. We're also lucky enough to have Shannon returning in December as well. Save the date for her next Real Talk on December 15th. And we'll see everybody next month.
Right.
Bye.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.